For Parabolas Part 2, we're going to focus on the focus and the directrix. So just to make sure you remember, the focus and the directrix are the two things that any point on the parabola is equidistant from. So I want to give you just a quick idea of what that would look like. So if I were to draw a parabola, the focus would be somewhere around here, and the directrix would be somewhere down here. And the idea is if we pick a point, the distance from that point to the focus is the same as distance from that point to the directrix. So the way we find the focus and the directrix has to do with the letter P, which you can see right here. It's in the same spot in both versions. So that number out front, we will have to divide it by 4 in order to get the value of P. So for the focus for both of them, you will add P, and for the directrix, you will subtract P. And if you notice, it's paired with whatever variable it's next to. So right in this top one, P is next to the X, so we add P to the X value of the vertex to get the focus point. And we have X equals, again, because it's paired with X, and we subtract P from the X value of the vertex to get that. So the process is the same in the other version, except this time we're next to Y. So that's why it is added to the Y value of the vertex to get the focus point, and subtracted from the Y value to get the directrix line. So do keep in mind that the focus is a point, the directrix is a line. So for this example, what I would recommend is, with all of these really, even if it doesn't specifically ask you for the vertex, go ahead and write the vertex, because that's kind of our starting point. So for this one, the vertex would be -5, 3. Now, to get the focus and the directrix, we're going to need the value of P. So remember, that comes from this number right here. So we know that 4P, again, if you go back to the equations, it is 4P that is the number in front. So 4P is equal to 20. Just divide both sides by 4 and get P equals 5. And I'm sure on lots of these you could do the division in your head. That's fine to do that. You don't have to write it out to the side if you don't want to. But it is paired this time with the X value. So to get the focus, I add my P, I add 5 to the X value of the vertex. That gives me 0, 3. Because the focus is a point. Now the directrix is a line. Again, we are paired here with the X. The 20 is with the X, so it's going to be X equals, and I subtract 5 from this X value. So I do -5 minus 5, which will make it -10. So that's how I get the focus and the directrix. I add P to the X value in this case to get the focus. I subtract P from the X value to get the directrix. On this next one, we start with the vertex, because it's just where we'll go from. The vertex in this one is -2, 7. So to get the focus and to get the directrix, we will need the value of P. So this time we're coming with the number 6, so 4P is equal to 6. So divide both sides by 4, that's 6 over 4. You can write it as 3/2, or you can even write it as 1.5. I'll probably use the decimal in this case, but any one of those is fine. You can use fraction or decimal. Now this time, it's paired up with the Y. So that means to get the focus, we need to add 1.5 to the Y value of the vertex. So I do 7 plus 1.5 and get 8.5. So that is the point where the focus would be. Now for the directrix, since I'm paired with Y, I do Y equals, and I subtract 1.5 from the 7. So I get Y equals 5.5 for that one. Okay, for this example, we're going to do all 5 of the things we've talked about with parabolas. We've done the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the direction of opening, the focus, and the directrix. We're going to put all 5 of those together. So for the vertex for this one, we would get -6, 0. For the axis of symmetry, remember that comes from the one that's squared. So y is squared, so we use y equals, and we just use the y value of the vertex, which is 0. And for the direction of opening, what I recommended is you say, okay, that comes from looking at this number. This number is paired with x. The x-axis is horizontal. That means I need to think about the left and the right. Since that number is negative, it tells me it opens to the left. For the focus, I need to find p. So I do 4p is equal to that negative 8. So p is equal to negative 2. Now it's completely fine for p to be negative. That's allowed. But keep in mind that may make things, it's not backwards, but it may feel backwards when you're adding and subtracting. Just make sure you still follow the rules. If you add the p to get the focus, you subtract the p to get the directrix. So since where we get the p, this number right here, is with x this time, to get the directrix, the focus, doing it out of order, to do the focus, I need to add p to the x value of the vertex. So I do negative 6 plus negative 2, which will give me negative 8. So my focus is at negative 8, 0. Now for my directrix, since I'm with the x, I'll do x equals, and I subtract it. So I do negative 6 minus negative 2, which will make it x equals negative 4. Okay, this one, same process, but first we're going to have to get the equation in standard form, meaning we're going to have to do completing the square and some other things. So first of all, you notice that it is x that's being squared. So I want to leave the x's on the left side of the equation, move everything else over to the right side of the equation. So I'm going to leave x squared minus 8x right there. I'm going to add the y to the other side and subtract 18 to the other side. Now I can complete the square. Cut negative 8 in half, that's negative 4. Square it, that's 16. Add 16 to both sides. So I get x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals y minus 2. Then I factor the left side. It'll be x minus 4 times x minus 4. So that'll just be x minus 4 squared. And you don't have to do this, but I think it's easiest if you go ahead and write this with parentheses and just put a 1 out front. That just makes it look more like the standard form, makes it easier to work with. It's not required at all mathematically, but I think it makes things simpler to go ahead and do that. Okay, so our vertex then is 4, 2. Our axis of symmetry comes from the one that's squared. X is squared, so we'll get x equals 4. We're just pulling the x value from the vertex. The direction of opening. Well, the number is paired with y, so that means I'm thinking vertical, up and down. Since it's a positive number in front of it, that means its direction is up. It's open up. For the focus, I need to find p. Well, I know that 4p is equal to 1, so p is equal to 1/4, or if you'd prefer, you can just say 0.25. So since it's paired with the y value, I need to go back to my vertex, look right here, and I need to add p to the y value. That makes it 2.25, because the focus is a point, and that's where it is. The directrix is a line. It's with y, so we'll use y equals, and I subtract p from the y value. So I do 2 minus 0.25 and get 1.75. Okay, last example. 2x squared minus 8x plus 3y plus 2. Again, we will have to do the completing the square and some other steps to make it look to be in standard form. Since the x is the one being squared, I want to leave all x's on the left side, move everything else to the right side. So I'll leave 2x squared minus 8x on the left side. I will subtract 3y and subtract the 2 over to the other side. To complete the square on the 2x squared minus 8x, I need to factor out a 2. Okay, now I cut the negative 4 in half, that's negative 2. Square it, that's positive 4, so I add 4. But keep in mind on the other side, I need to add 2 times 4, because this 2 out front is going to be multiplied by this 4. So I'm really adding 2 times 4. So I get 2 times x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals negative 3y. I believe that's going to be plus 6. So I can factor the left side. It'll be x minus 2 times x minus 2. So I can write it as x minus 2 squared. On the right side, I need to factor out the negative 3. Because whatever's in front of y, in this case, needs to be factored out. So I put negative 3 out front, and that gives me y minus 2. And my last step is to divide both sides by 2, because I can't leave this number out front here. I need this side to just be 1 in front. I can have coefficients over on the right side, that's fine. Okay, so that one took us some work, but we finally did get it in standard form. That's in some ways the hardest part for this one, is just doing all the steps to get it in standard form. So hopefully you can see then the vertex would be 2, 2. The axis of symmetry, that comes from the squared one, which is x, so we do x equals 2. The direction of opening, well, if we look, this number is with y. Y is vertical, so we need to think up or down. Since that number is negative, that means its direction of opening is down. And for the focus, we need to find P. So 4P is equal to negative 3 halves. If I divide both sides by 4, I get that P is equal to negative 3 eighths, or negative 0.375, if you want to have the decimal. So for our focus, we need to add that number to the y value. And again, this is why we add it to the y value, because that's the one it's with over on the right hand side. So we add 0.375 to 2, and we would get 1.625. So that would be the point that is the focus. Now the directrix, we're with y, so we'll do y equals, and we subtract that number. So we do 2 minus negative 0.375, which gives us 2.375. Okay, that is what you need to know about parabolas: the vertex, the axis of symmetry, the direction of opening, the focus, and the directrix. Good luck.